Hey guys, for my client today, we're going to refreshen her blonde and brighten her back up again. You might actually recognize her from one of my first videos if you've watched them. This is actually her hair that I've done before. I will link it in the description. So if you're wondering how I get her super dark hair to very nice, cool, and ashy, then keep watching. For those of you who have been interested, you can follow me on Instagram at Christy@thecottage. And again, here's my client's hair before we get into the video. Hey guys, I'm super excited for the color I'm gonna do today. We just did a rough cut on my client and we're doing more of like the trendy bob style that's kind of going around right now. She wants to go a little bit brighter because as we're going into spring and summertime, so we're going to actually not do quite a full like we typically do, just because I felt like cutting it up a little bit shorter in the back, I felt like having it darker underneath would be really cute and add a little bit of dimension to the cut. So we're gonna go through and I'm gonna do like a foliage so that we can get her nice and bright. She's about a level 3 naturally, so you guys will see how I get my darker level clients to a nice bright blonde. My go-to bleach that lifts so much more than others is Schwarzkopf Blonde Me. So to start with her lightener, I just really do probably like 1 scoop. I don't like packing in like my bowl of bleach because it's gonna die out and then I'm not gonna get as good as of lift. So I really just do my 1 scoop. And then I just use 20 volume because if you use 30 volume on darker hair, I feel like it dies out a lot faster and then you're not gonna get as good of lift. So I always just use my 20 volume because it lifts slower and longer. So then I feel like I get a better, brighter lift out of 20 volume versus 30 volume. And I don't really measure, I just kind of go by consistency. But one of the things that I will say about Schwarzkopf Lightener is that it blows out of the packets. So you kind of have to be really, really cautious with this lightener. And then what I always do is just water it down a little bit. So we will go over to the sink and I will just show you, like, not a lot, like honestly, just a little bit. Yeah, and I can tell that this is a consistency that I'm gonna like. And then I will add Olaplex to this, and this is what I use for my lightener. To start her hair, I'm gonna go through and do my sectioning around her face. You guys know that I really like to go through and do my vertical foils this way. It just creates a really nice lightness that helps blend around the hairline, and then when she pulls her hair back, it's gonna blend really nicely and just look really soft instead of a whole bunch of heavy stripes. So on her, I actually do maybe like 4 to 5 foils right on the hairline, whereas some other clients I only do like 2 to 3. And that's because we do want to go pretty bright, nice and blonde. So I feel like the more that I can pack in on her hairline, the brighter she'll be around her face and the happier she's gonna be. Another thing to consider when you're doing foiling around the hairline is sometimes you have to do a little bit more, or sometimes you have to do it diagonal back or straight up right on the hairline, depending on how their hairline grows. So for her, she does wear her hair back in a ponytail quite often for work. So I want to make sure that she has an even amount of brightness all around her face, and she does part her hair a little bit further on the side. So I am going to go through and add a little bit more foils around her hairline just to make sure that no matter where she pulls her hair back, she's going to have equal amount of brightness all the way around. With having a side part, if you don't go back far enough or high enough up around the hairline, then she might part her hair over on the side and it's gonna look kind of like dark holes or dark areas in her hairline if you're not getting enough foils just right around the front of her face. Now that I'm going right on the front of her hairline where she parts her hair where the money piece is going to be at, I'm doing really fine, small sectionings. I want to make sure that it has a really nice blend. We do want it to be nice and bright, but we don't want it to look stripy or chunky or anything. So I feel like the smaller weaves that you do, the better that this money piece ends up looking. In this section for her hair, you want to make sure that you're extra careful not to run the bleach through the ends. You can see here in a second after I apply the lightener, I'm going to go through and pull out these darker pieces that run through the ends. Just be really cautious not to break through the ends and cause more damage. This is going to stand out from a lot of other hairstylists that would just bring the bleach through the ends and cause breakage. Just be really careful to be cautious with your client's hair and not to cause any further damage. I like to go through and do a zigzag right on the part. That way it ensures that no matter where their hair flips over from the side or if they part their hair just a few centimeters over, that they're gonna have the equal amount of brightness. I really am afraid that if I do a straight part and just foil right off of that section, that if they happen to part their hair over a little bit, all their brightness is going to fall onto the one side and then the other side of their part is going to be really dark, especially when you're doing blonde balayage, because a lot of clients want their hair to be super bright, so you're taking extra small sections. So if you're not cautious, all of that hair could end up falling on one side. So that's why I like doing a zigzag. That's going to help make sure that when the hair falls natural with their part, it's going to disperse evenly on either side and they'll have equal brightness when they wear their natural part. Also, you can see that little section that I clipped back, that is her subsection. So because we are going quite a bit brighter, the little pieces of hair that I'm leaving out are actually very, very fine and very small sections. We want to be quite a bit brighter this time, but we want to have a nice rooty look and have a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to do a heavier foil up in the top. We're not going to go through so much in the back area, but from the ears and above, we're going to go pretty heavy with the bleach, but we're just going to leave just a teeny bit weaved out just for some added dimension and to blend with her dark roots. I've been asked before if I do more surface painting or if I'm saturating all the way through when I do my foil work. And honestly, I usually saturate all the way through. A lot of my clients are either coming from really dark hair or they're naturally a little bit lighter, but they still want to be quite a bit blonder. So I usually always do more heavier saturation. That way I can ensure that they have quite a bit of blonde. They're going to be blonde all the way through. The only time that I do more surface painting is if somebody only wants to be like a little bit of dimensional balayage and just to like break the base a little bit. But if somebody wants to be quite a bit brighter, then I can guarantee you that 100% of the time I am doing full saturation. This is all we've done for her foiling on the side, and then we will go through and repeat the process on the other side. I want to go through and check and see how she's lifting, and then just to get the speed going a little bit faster, I always go through with my blow dryer. I never ever sit my clients underneath a hooded dryer. I feel like that puts so much heat just right at the top of the head and it doesn't disperse it evenly. So I like being more in control with the heat, and I'll just blast my clients really fast, foil up to foil, and then I'll go back through towards the end and reapply heat if I need to. Now we're going through with our second bowl of Lightener and adding our Olaplex. So one thing that I've heard other people do is that they charge for Olaplex. And I used to charge for Olaplex, but I stopped doing that. I mean, technically it's enrolled in the cost of the product. So I used to only charge like $10 per extra bowl of Lightener, but now I charge $15 per extra bowl of Lightener to roll in the cost of the Olaplex. I just don't inform my clients. I used to do that as an add-on cost, but I noticed that if you can break down a price for a client and if they want to know like what is the charge for everything, then if you add $50 in there for Olaplex and for an Olaplex treatment, guaranteed, because they don't understand the value of what Olaplex does for the hair, they're gonna not choose to use it. So I would rather just make sure that it's included in the service and not like straight up tell them that it's going to be an added cost. They just know ahead of time that it's included in the service with all of my blondes. They get a treatment included with it. And I honestly don't really charge for the treatment. It's more so just the Olaplex that I include into my Lightener that I'm adding the charge to when I do my extra bowls of bleach. So personally, the reason why I do it this way now is because if you damage somebody's hair because you're not using the best products possible, then that reflects on you, and your quality of work is going to go down if you don't use the best products. So for me, I would rather just know that it's included in all of my services to do the best that I can and to make sure that my blondes have no damage, to make sure that they leave with their hair feeling really, really great. And to me, it's worth it to just include it in all of my services because that's just going to make my work look better. So that's why I personally do not charge or offer that to my clients if they want to use it or not. It's just automatically included in the service. At this point, when I go through and check my client's hair, depending on how much brassiness they have left in the hair, I will go back and mix like 30 or 40 volume developer just to put it on for like the last 15 minutes or so. But if the hair isn't that bad, then I'll just go through and reapply the lightener just to keep it moist and make sure that the lightener doesn't dry out. Here, she's actually looking pretty good. I don't need to go through with my 30 volume. So we're just gonna reapply and make sure that her hair keeps processing. And then that honestly is the only time that I use 30 volume. Like some of these spots right here, I know that this hasn't been sitting as long. So some of these areas is where I would go through and apply some 30 volume. After going through and reapplying lightener, I went through her subsections and dropouts, and I just painted on and did some balayage just to re-brighten her ends, and I'm gonna just let her sit for about 20 minutes. You can see that she lifted really nicely. She only has a little bit of brassiness just right at the root area, which we're gonna tone. So now we're gonna do an Olaplex treatment, pre-tone with some Fanola Purple shampoo, and then go into the toning process. Okay, so I just rinsed my client and she's actually sitting with Olaplex on at the shampoo bowl, and we're gonna get ready to tone her right now, and we're gonna tone for her brightest blonde areas. And again, I like doing it this way versus starting darker and then toning lighter first, because I'll be able to see what's still gonna be brassy, and then when we go through and do her root shadow, we'll be able to drag that down into the brassier areas. Normally when I do my toners, I add a little bit of rose gold just to balance the tones, but because she already has a lot of underlying warmth in her hair, I don't need to add any rose gold to this toner. Okay, now that we have my client toned, I'm gonna go through and do her root shadow. And one of my favorite formulas that I like to use for doing a root shadow, especially if there's a lot of brassiness, is actually the Schwarzkopf Agora Vibrance. And I really like using the 612, but you kind of have to be careful with that because it can turn, actually, it can go like really, really blue. And I like mixing it with like 811. And that's what I'm gonna use to do her roots. And I'm actually kind of on a time crunch, so I'm going to apply it with a bottle. I mix these two toners equal parts together. To start her application, I'm just going in right at the roots. I'm not going in along her hairline at all because we want to make sure that that stays a little bit brighter. So I haven't touched her hairline or her money piece at all yet. I'm just going to go through and kind of do right on her roots, probably like the 2 inches below where we did her blonde. That way it really darkens up nicely and blends with her roots. And then once I go through and get all of her root area covered, then I'm going to go through and kind of pick apart her hair where I can see where it's still a little bit brassy. And then I'm going to run it through those ends just to make sure that I cool them down a little bit. I just want to make sure that I scrub it into her hair. That way it kind of drags down and blends a little bit more naturally. And you can see here, I'm just going to go through and just barely tap the root section right along her hairline because we want to try and preserve as much brightness as possible. Here, I'm just going through trying to find any warmer spots that need to be toned down. I want to make sure that the rest of the toner has a chance to sit a little bit longer and to get these brassy areas first. And then once I know that I have all those darker, brassier spots covered, I'm going to go through and run the toner through all of her ends just for the last minute or so. That way it can reinforce the coolness and ashiness and try to cool down her brightest blonde a little bit more than what the original toner was able to do. She still has a little bit of warmth left over, so I feel like adding this extra toner in there is just going to cool her down a little bit more and make it look a little bit better. Here's her before. You can see that she has a lot of grow out, a lot of brassiness. Here's her after. You can see how much brighter it is. She has a lot of coolness, a lot of bright blonde pieces, but it still blends really nicely into her roots. I love that she's so much brighter, but still has a lot of dimension in there. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, please ask in the comment section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.